Aloha, and welcome to another edition of A Better Day. I'm State Senator Sam Slom, and I welcome you and your family. Thank you for tuning in today. I think we've got an interesting program for you and an informative program. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and oh my gosh, Christmas on the way and a new year already. Whatever happened to 2012? Well, it's going to go down as a major year. There were a lot of things that happened, some good, some not so good. From my standpoint, I'm still getting over the election. I get, barbs here and there and everywhere. But hey, the show must go on, and so must the state legislature. And you know what? In the last couple of months, we've had a lot to chew on here. We had the special Senate investigation of the University of Hawaii, and we made a number of recommendations. And there's going to be a lot of changes that will be proposed during the 2013 session. And then we had the problem of the debacle of the 2012 both the primary and general elections, mostly the general elections, and we've got investigations going on in that. I've noticed a change. A lot of you who used to be more passive, more matter-of-fact are saying, hey, we want you folks to do your job. We want money accounted for. We want more accountability and transparency. And so I think that's going to be a major thing that we're going to deal with during the 2013 legislative session. Well, as I mentioned, we got a very special guest today. We're very fortunate. We have someone, a Jane of all trades, Linda Smith. It says, on her bio, she's a policy advisor. But Linda is much more than that. Linda is a very savvy lady when it comes to budgets and finance and the legislative process, and also small business. Because before she got into all of this, she and her husband were involved in small business. So welcome to A Better Day,
Well,
Linda.
thank you, Senator. It's great to be with you today.
And I said you and your husband, Paul, were involved in manufacturing.
That's correct,
and
right
in
here
small
in Hawaii.
business. You know firsthand the difficulties in a hostile business climate like Hawaii. Do you think we've made any progress at all?
Unfortunately not. In fact, I think maybe we've backslid a little bit here in Hawaii. Particularly with the kind of taxes that businesses are now facing, and of course they're going to have the Obamacare
coming January 1st.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talk about the financial cliff. We've been overlooking that financial cliff in Hawaii for a long time, but we still have a lot of people that are in denial. They say, well, it can't happen here. We're not like Greece. We're not like California and all that. But in fact, we are. And we have not taken those steps to prepare for a different economy, to prepare for even more, as you say, taxes, employer mandates, regulations, permits, all of that stuff. But that aside, everything really comes down to money, doesn't it? Either
it absolutely
you're
does.
chasing it, or it's being hidden, or whatever.
More of it. Mm-hmm.
And when everybody here says, "Oh, it's for the keiki," they don't mean that really. It's for the money. It's for the jobs and all that. And you've had a tremendous career. You were involved in the city
Correct.
budgeting process.
I was the director of finance, actually, for the city and county of Honolulu. And when they couldn't figure out where to put something, they put it in the finance department. So we had motor vehicle licensing, we had real property assessments, and that was at the time when a lot of people from Japan were coming and buying up properties.
Right.
So very high increases in appraisals. We had the liquor licensing commission was part of the finance department, contracting and purchasing and auditing and insurance. So
and on and on and on, and
really
taxes and fees and usage costs, and we see all of them. They've gone up tremendously, and they're going to go up again. Why? Because government's insatiable appetite for more revenues, for more programs, for expansion of things that they're doing. And then you were involved in the state, and you were a key player with the Lingle administration in terms of policy and all that. Of all the things that you've done, what have you enjoyed the most?
Working in this building, the state capitol, on the 5th floor as the policy advisor to Governor Linda Lingle, because at any one time I could be dealing with something involving agriculture, coffee bean bars, for example, and the next moment maybe veterans issues, in between, of course, fiscal concerns, education. So the opportunity to address policy concerns statewide on every topic that the state has to address was unique. I'd always tell people I would have paid to have that job. It was so much fun.
Well, whenever there was a problem, any kind of problem, people would say, "Get me Linda Smith," because you had the expertise, you had the demeanor in which to be in a controversial situation and solve those problems. And the problems don't go away, do they?
They don't, and as you know, Senator, we really appreciated the opportunity to work with you when Governor Lingle was in office, and the few Senate colleagues that you had at that time.
I had few then. Now I have me, still have me, the Lone Ranger.
But we got some excellent legislation through in terms of charter school improvements, for example. Governor Lingle never increased taxes, as we know, in fact, she vetoed a number of bills that passed in the 2009-2010 time frame.
A lot of people forget that, I think.
They
forget
do.
the
Stopping bad things from
difficulty.
happening is an important part of governance.
Well, yeah, it is, and not only that, but you know, we're taught to say yes and be polite and respectful and all that, but sometimes the best thing you can do is say no. I mean, as parents, we have to do that with our kids. You know, you'd like to say yes all the time, but you can't, because not only is it character building, that's your responsibility. And the responsibility is sometimes to say, hey, we'd like to have this, but we can't afford it, or the numbers don't work out.
And particularly in 2008, when, of course, this state, like many other jurisdictions, had a major falling, a cliff of sorts, a fiscal cliff in terms of loss of revenues. That was a time when you needed a governor and legislators that said, we cannot continue to sustain the type of programs. That's why we had to have furloughs. That's why we had to really look hard at a lot of duplicative programs and close some of them down. People don't necessarily like it when an elected official has to say no.
No, they don't.
But that's part of the responsibility, and being able to balance the state budget, not impact the state's credit rating. I think that was the other thing, and do it without increasing taxes.
You know, the interesting thing to me is the priorities that people place upon themselves. And we just had an election. We're going to talk a little bit about that, the fallout from it and all that. There are more people that vote on American Idol than vote in our elections. And
what a sad statement that
well,
is.
that's right. It does make
true.
a statement. And then a month ago, when it was announced on the mainland that Hostess Baking Company was going to go out of business, what happened? Everybody panicked and they rushed to their store to buy Twinkies and Ho-Hos and ding-dongs. Personally, I'm a tasty cake man myself from Pennsylvania. But they went into a panic and they focused on that. Boy, wouldn't it be something if we could only get people to put half that energy into focusing into what their government does in terms of the financial implications, the decisions that are made, taxes, where they go, and all of that, and yet they don't. And we haven't found a formula to get people to do that.
Correct, and also, as you have well said at the beginning of this program, holding government officials accountable and responsible when things don't go right. And that's what we really need to ensure, that the public is both educated in terms of what they should expect. There should be a level of expectation, and that they then get outraged and kick the buggers out.
Yeah.
If they're not performing, they're not spending their money well.
I'm always, I'm humbled by people that come up to me at Long's or Safeway or Zippy's or whatever, and they say, oh, you're doing a good job, and thank you for that vote on this. And I said, but that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to do a good job, and you're supposed to hold me accountable. And unfortunately, we don't do that. I mean, we got people, they don't even know who their elected representatives or senator is. They don't know when the election is. And as you know from working in this big square building, as wonderful as it may be, and by the way, the moat smells just as bad as it did when you were here, as wonderful as it is, we tend to think here, like when we're in session from January through May, that everybody they stop what they're doing, and they're attuned to what we're doing here. Every vote, every speech, and most people don't even know, oh, you guys in session. You guys meeting now. And there's this disconnect, which I say we have to somehow bridge and find a way around.
But as we know, when you're a business person, it's very hard to set aside time to make your presence here in the state legislature. And in my mind, some of the ideals would be that if people didn't have to worry so much about government, if they could trust their elected leaders to watch their finances properly, to spend their tax dollars with the sense that it's their own money, and then business people could continue to run their businesses, moms and dads could focus on their kids' education.
Yeah, that's the point.
That would be the...
It's just like, you know, when we did the UH investigation, the Senate did that, and it was $200,000. And a lot of people told us, why are you making such a big deal? It's only $200,000. Well, if it were their $200,000,
a lot of money,
right? It was their $50. That was one of the points that we made during the session. A reasonable person would not have made the mistakes that the UH administration made if it were their money, but it's not. And then compounding that was Chancellor Tom Apple, who in a speech to the faculty and the staff and the students said, well, you know, as important as that $200,000 is, we have $1 billion budget here in Manoa, and my friends who handle more than $180 million a year say, well, if somebody really checked closely, they'd find out that there's more than that that's, you know, misplaced, mistaken, mistook every year. Well, maybe that's a job for the Senate in 2013.
Well, certainly
find out where that money goes.
Inexcusable that
Yeah.
he would make that kind of a statement as a public official, saying
Yeah.
that they waste or can't find 200 or 300,000. But as you say,
Right.
this is an opportunity for the Senate to step up and seriously look at how they're managing the
By the way, I
university.
want to remind everybody they're watching A Better Day, and you know why we call this A Better Day. Our governor deemed his administration a good day. I think we can do better than that. I think we have to do better than that. I think for every single mom, every small business, every family in Hawaii who's still struggling, they're waiting for that economy to turn the corner. They're waiting for some relief. They're waiting for some alternative to the high electricity prices and high food prices and gasoline and all of that. And as a body, the legislature has not done what it can do, and what it should do in terms of alleviating some of those problems.
Well, the investigative authority of the legislature is one of its most important powers. And the Senate, a few senators seem to exercise it a lot more than the rest of the legislature.
But we set up a special committee just to do that.
And that's important.
Yeah.
And informational hearings should be just that. They should be not just letting a dog and pony show occur, because as a citizen, when I come up and I'm seeing just the same old faces saying the same old standard things, I feel it's a waste of my time. If there's going to be an informational hearing, make sure it is getting at the root of a problem, it identifies the problem, and it comes up with a plan to solve that problem.
And there's got to be consequences for misbehavior, for you know, the misuse of funds or office or anything else. And I think that's been part of the problem, because a lot of the public looks at us as, okay, we make the laws and then we exempt ourselves from the laws that we make. They're good enough for you, but they don't apply to us, and we have to do that. Okay, look, I'm not going to let you go without asking you, though. You and your husband escaped from Hawaii. You moved away. Why?
We voted with our feet because we moved to the state of Nevada, which has no personal income tax. It has no corporate income tax. That's why a lot of businesses incorporate.
Is it really that important?
Yes. And I can tell you from the neighbors that I talk to, many of them are ex-California, a number of them are ex-Hawaii. They come from a variety of states, ex-Colorado, because they have decided that they can better manage their own money than turning it over to the government. We don't have an estate tax in Nevada, for example. And more importantly, and this is not to condemn Hawaii, but certainly to say that there are models out there, the highways, even though there's bad weather, particularly in the north and the area around Reno where I live, the highways don't have potholes, they're not cracked, they're resurfaced on a regular basis. So government can work and it can set priorities. And I think citizens move to those states when they feel that there's a chance to both pay less as well as get more for the money they do pay.
Our guest is Linda Smith, policy advisor, all-time good financial fiscal expert.
Thank you.
You know, I used to refer to our terrible streets and roads here as third world roads, and then I got all of these angry letters from third world countries saying, "Do not say that about our country. Our roads are good." So now I have to say fourth world. You know, I have to do that.
But I wanted to share with you, Senator, because I voted in Hawaii for 30 years, and I know one of the issues that's top of mind now is how the elections went in Hawaii.
Well,
and
we brought you back,
you have spoken up on
and you
that
went to
issue.
the Office of Elections meeting. Boy, I bet
right.
that was a mind opener.
Well, it was, and I'll just share, because I have voted in Hawaii for 30 years. I've been a poll worker, I've been a poll watcher, so I have some feel for what it's like, the election process here. In the state of Nevada, every voter, every person actually, first of all, you register when you register your automobile or get your driver's license or a state ID. So it's just an extension of the same process. Every voter gets a sample ballot. They manage to deliver them to the right address.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. And that sample ballot has a UPC code on it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're instructed to bring your sample ballot with you to the polling place. So as soon as I walked in, first of all, there was ample parking at the polling place. You didn't have to wait in line. There were no lines. I brought in my sample ballot. They immediately scanned it, and they verified that I was in the right place, and this is where I was supposed to vote. And it goes in electronically. Then they hand me something that looks like a credit card.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk over to a machine and put it into the card, and it brings up the ballot, office by office, starting with the national. The print is big for those of us who don't want to have to put our glasses on. When the screen's easy to read, and every time you pick a candidate, it put a big green check mark next to the name, and you heard a click.
Mm-hmm.
After you'd finished voting for all the offices, then you could scan a paper version of what you had done just to make sure the computer had recorded everything. And once you did that, you said, "Are you finished?" You said yes, and then it automatically sent your vote to the central office to be counted. It was simple, easy. Even the ballot initiatives were explained in not legal language, but in the kind of language that normal citizens could understand.
Mm-hmm.
So there are states who can hold elections efficiently and with a sense that people can trust the outcome, that there's fairness and honesty in the process. I wish we could say the same for Hawaii.
Well, you know, and this is a problem too, because we moved up our primary election this year for the first time, and that was required because we were disenfranchising overseas armed forces personnel.
Correct.
Then we disenfranchised the armed services personnel here in Hawaii in terms of reapportionment. You know, as I testified before the Office of Elections, look, we have an Office of Elections Commission. We took it out of the Lieutenant Governor's office years ago, which I think was a good thing, to have an independent body, particularly since the Lieutenant Governors usually run for governor. And it's kind of ludicrous having the election official be the person that's running for office.
And this Lieutenant Governor was formerly head of the Democrat Party, so it would not have been good.
That too. But so we wanted an independent body. They have one job, and one job only, and that is to ensure that there is a fair and efficient and easy election once every 2 years. That's all they have to do. And this year, as we saw, there was a tremendous set of errors on the Big Island during the August primary, but that paled in comparison to what happened in the general election here on Oahu, where you had 24 precincts run out of ballots, and you had 51 total that were low or delayed or something else. And to listen to the chief elections officer make excuses and blame other people, I mean, it's totally inappropriate, and we deserve better. And I said at the start of the program that people, I think there's a change going on. Hawaii people are very understanding. They're very compassionate, and that's a wonderful trait. But when you're paying for something, or when you're expecting something important, like the right to vote, and what's more important than your
Constitution?
It's
the most sacred and important
your
part of a
fundamental right to
democracy.
vote. There's no excuse for that. The fact that people got turned away, that ballots were not counted, that names were wrong, that the ballots were delivered in wrong places, and to listen to the explanation, well, we use this formula, but the formula X plus I, come on. As was pointed out by one of the commissioners, you have 100,000 people registered to vote, you deliver 100,000 ballots. At the end, it wasn't a printing problem, it was a distribution problem, which made it even more ludicrous.
But this is not the first time that the Office of Elections has had some major defaults in terms of how they've conducted the one job they're supposed to be able to do.
Just like the University of Hawaii, the wonder blunder Stevie was not the first thing. You go back to Evan Dobell and Herman Fraser and McMacken and all that. With elections, you go back to 1998 with the things that went on there, and then the lawsuits and the problems with the voting machines and the contracts and all of the things that happened.
I remember an incident where supposedly the ballot boxes fell off the back of the truck in Kauai in 1998. Now tell me, how can you just lose ballot boxes?
Well, the explanation was it didn't affect any of the elections. How do we know?
We don't. We'll never
and
know.
the fact that Hawaii, which used to enjoy the position of being the best turnout, the highest number of people in the 90s, 90%, then slipped in 2010 to number 50, below West Virginia. I think this year we may have picked up one spot. Now maybe we're only 49 or 48. It's unconscionable. And one of the reasons that people don't vote is because of the tremendous one-party domination. But another reason is when you have things like this, and you got people running around now talking about conspiracy, about calling in the FBI and calling in the United States Justice Department for violations in voting. And it shouldn't be, because all of these errors, if we are very gentle, all the errors were avoidable. And as you say, you've worked in every position. I was an election inspector at one year. I worked in the polling places too.
I didn't realize that, Senator.
It's good. It's a good experience, isn't it?
It's an excellent experience because it really helps you understand what a citizen, you know, from the time they walk in, try and determine even if they're in the right place. You know, how do I sign this book? It gives you a real sense of the process, but it also tells you Hawaii shouldn't have a black eye for something as fundamental as casting a vote. So, as you've said, other states have demonstrated it can be done well. It's a matter of competent, capable staff.
Right,
and
leadership.
This election commission has to decide, are they going to step up and recognize that they do not have competent, capable staff.
And as you say, I mean, you go back to the previous election officer, Mr. Cronin, who did just an absolutely terrible job. And you go back to Wayne Yoshina and all of the problems that we had. And we tend to overlook those problems. But now I'm hopeful that people are going to hold all of us more responsible as they should. Now, the governor weighed in on the Big Island situation, and he weighed in calling for an investigation by the Attorney General, and also advocating full-on total absentee ballots
and vote by mail
and electronic. What do you think about that?
I believe it has too many opportunities for misuse and fraud. And I would rather see a system where people actually physically still have to come in, but you make it very easy, just what I've described in Nevada. Yes, you can absentee vote, but you need to go through the double process of requesting the absentee ballot, getting it back, and then sending it in. But everybody voting by mail, I would be very concerned about how you effectively control and police something.
There was one, I think, a little bit of a discussion. Well, let's take it back to the office of the Lieutenant Governor. I think that's totally unacceptable, and I don't think that will fly. But this idea of the fact that nearly 50% or more of people are voting by absentee ballot, as you say, we need to have more oversight and a backup. And if we look to other states, we find out that that's been done. Now, the governor does not have the power or the responsibility to do this. This is a legislative purview, and I know that this is going to be on the agenda for 2013.
It would need to start with the most fundamental thing, which is checking the voter rolls.
Exactly.
Hawaii has been very poor at purging its voter rolls to ensure that people still live at the address where they're supposed to live.
Simple basics, right?
And they're still alive. And I can tell you, certainly in the state of Nevada, the Women's Republican group in my small community, we actually had a group that went door to door to door with the voters list to confirm that people still were at their proper address and still had the ability to vote there. And we were finding between 15 and 20% discrepancies between the official state voter rolls and the actuality of people still living at that address.
And because there's 2 years between elections and all that, that's something that the elections people can do, right?
They should be doing it right now.
Because we don't know what they're doing the rest of their time.
Either that, or let's turn it over to an organization like UPS or FedEx. They can figure out where everybody lives.
Hey, I think you got something there. They always do, don't they?
They can deliver on time. They can make sure that the package gets where it's supposed to be. So if these kinds of organizations can be successful handling tens of millions of parcels getting to where they need to be, certainly they can handle something as simple as cleaning up the voter rolls and making sure that people who should vote do and are on that list, and people who shouldn't or have moved or gone elsewhere don't. I wonder, am I still on the Hawaii voter list? I
Yeah.
may well be.
Well, even the people that said that, well, I'm not involved in this because I turned in my absentee ballot. Do we know if the absentee ballot actually got counted? Was
That's
it processed
correct.
properly and
That's
all
correct.
that? So obviously the good news is that all of these problems are easily solvable.
And without much money.
And without much money, that's
This
right.
is not a big ticket item in terms of a fiscal impact.
Yeah.
If you have the right people and some decent
Well,
software.
it's like education, and you were involved in that too. People say, just give us more money. It's not more money if you're doing the wrong thing or not doing the right thing to begin with. So that's that. Well, Linda, I really appreciate you spending time.
It's been
and
a
I know
pleasure.
that even though you folks are living in another state, that you still are involved in Hawaii. You've invested a lot in Hawaii.
My
You
heart's
contributed.
my heart's in Hawaii.
Your heart? Okay. Well, you're always welcome to come back, and we look to you for advice and guidance, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Senator. It's been a pleasure to speak with you and everybody, your entire constituency statewide.
Well, that's great. That's great. And to all of you, we thank you again for tuning in and spending some time with us. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, criticism, whatever, please contact me directly, personally. Be very happy to respond to you. And we're getting ready for the 2013 legislature, which starts on Wednesday, January 16th. It's going to be an important legislature, as they all are, but we want your input. Don't give up, and don't feel that things can't get done because you have more power than you believe. So have happy holidays, have a happy new year, and we'll see you again hopefully early next year when we work all together for a better day. Aloha.